Some bikers ride for freedom. But the rowdy ones, they ride for attention. The kind that comes from scaring anyone who crosses their path. Today, their eyes landed on a woman who'd spent her whole life serving coffee and kindness. They shoved her, mocked her, grabbed her arm when she asked them politely to stop. Everyone else stayed quiet, afraid. Everyone except the man sitting just a few feet away. Jasonstatham set his fork down. And the diner would never forget what happened next. But before we continue, I just want to take a moment to say thank you for being here with us. Your support, your likes, your comments, they mean more than you know. If you're enjoying these emotional, real-life inspired stories and you want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, so you never miss another moment like this. Alright, let's get back to the story. Some bikers ride because the road is the only place they feel free. Others ride because power feels better when it's loud. On most days, May's diner only ever saw the first kind. Truckers passing through. Local club riders who tipped well and called the old waitress ma'am and held the door on their way out. But not today. Outside, the late afternoon sky was the color of dishwater. Heavy clouds pressed low over the two-lane highway, the kind that made everything feel slower and smaller. Inside the diner, the lights hummed, the coffee machine hissed, and the same old country song wandered out of the jukebox like it had nowhere better to be. At the counter, Elena wiped a ring of coffee from the laminate surface and smiled at a man old enough to be her brother. "Another top-up, sweetheart?" she asked, lifting the pot. "You're gonna float me out of here one day, Ellie," he chuckled. "You should be so lucky," she teased softly. Elena had been working this diner longer than most of the framed photos on the wall had existed. She was small, thin, with silver hair twisted into a bun at the back of her head. Her hands were lined, knuckles knotted, but they still moved with a kind of grace, cleaning, pouring, placing plates with patient care. Most people passed through this place once in their lives and forgot it by the next town. Nobody forgot her. She knew her regulars by name, strangers by their mood, and everyone by their coffee preference. Black, no sugar, right? Extra cream, don't worry, I won't tell your wife. One pancake, even though you said two, I'm looking out for your heart, not your stomach. The owner of the diner stayed mostly in the back, counting supplies and worrying about bills. The cook shouted orders. The regulars talked about nothing. It was an ordinary day, the kind that folded into the one before and the one after. And in a corner booth near the window, a man in a dark jacket sat quietly with a plate of eggs, one hand around a mug of black coffee. He wore a cap low over his brow, head slightly bowed. Most people didn't recognize him when he wanted it that way. Jason liked that about places like this. Nobody cared who you were on the screen. They cared if you tipped, if you were kind, if you respected the woman who'd been pouring coffee there since the 80s. He watched the room without really looking like he was watching. Old instinct, old training, the kind that never really left. Door, windows. Who was tense, who was relaxed, who looked like they were running from something. He wasn't expecting trouble. He'd come for quiet. The universe, as usual, hadn't checked his plans. The first sign was the sound. Motorcycles. Not just one, a cluster. Engines rumbling low, then louder, then close enough that the glasses behind the counter trembled faintly on their shelf. The regulars looked up. The old man by the window took a slow breath. "Sounds like a herd," he muttered. Through the street glass, they saw them pulling in. 4 bikes. Then 2 more. Leather, denim, black helmets, patches stitched onto jackets that no one inside dared to read for too long. The cook poked his head out from the kitchen window, eyes narrowing. "You expecting a club?" he asked. The owner shook his head quickly. "Not me." Elena looked at the door. Her heart gave one small, tired thump. She'd seen trouble before. Young men with something to prove, girls trying too hard not to look afraid. She diffused more arguments with free pie than some bouncers did in a career. But these looked different, she thought. Heavy. Mean. The first biker walked in without even wiping his boots. The bell over the door gave a half-hearted jingle and then fell silent as if even it knew better. He was big, shoulders wide, leather vest patching over a hoodie, beard thick, tattoos crawling up his neck. Behind him came three more, then two, then one last straggler, younger than the rest, gazed not as hard as he tried to make it. Their presence changed the air, like someone had opened a door in winter, and cold slipped straight through everyone's spine. They spread out in a loose line near the counter, looking around, sizing the place up. Alina moved first. That's what you did when you'd been doing this job long enough. You stepped forward. "Afternoon, gents," she said, forcing the soft warmth into her voice. "Kitchen's open. You boys want a booth or the counter?" The leader glanced at her name tag, then at her face. "Is that so?" he said, voice low, oily. "Whole place is open, huh?" "Till 10, she nodded. "You'll have to share me with the rest of these folks, but I'll do my best." A couple of regulars offered tight, forced smiles, trying not to look nervous. Jason watched from his corner booth, eyes half-lidded, outwardly calm. The leader slapped the back of one of his men. "Hear that, boys? She's gonna share herself with the rest of M." His tone made the men smirk. Alina's cheeks reddened slightly, but she kept her posture straight. "Coffee to start?" she asked, ignoring the way he twisted her words. He chuckled. "Oh, I like her," he said. "Sure, sweetheart, coffee for all of us. We'll let you know if we need anything else." The way he said "anything else" made one of the bikers laugh too loudly. Jason's fingers tightened around his mug. He didn't move. He just watched. Alina turned away, walking toward the pot. Her steps were steady, but she could feel their eyes on her back, not as customers, not as people, but as men looking for an excuse. "Leave it alone," she told herself silently. "Just another rough group. You've handled worse." She poured 4 mugs, grabbed sugar packets, cream, and turned back. The leader's eyes tracked her. "Careful," he murmured to his guys. "Old Bones' hot coffee could be fun." 2 of them snickered. Jason heard every word. He set his fork down. "Not yet," he told himself. "Don't assume. Let it play a little further. Sometimes a threat walks out on its own when you don't feed it." Alina reached the counter and began setting mugs down, careful not to spill. "There you go, sugar," she said. "Anything to eat? Chili's fresh, got burgers, fries, pie." One of the bikers, massive arms inked from wrist to bicep, winked at her. "You on the menu." The others roared with laughter. Alina flinched just for a second. Jason saw it, that micro-expression of hurt that flashed through her before she buried it. "Just the food, darling," she said quietly. The leader leaned forward. "Come on, lads, be nice. Granny here's working hard." The word hit the air like a slap. Granny. Not ma'am, not miss. Just something meant to reduce her, to make her small. But Alina had heard worse. Age had given her one gift, skin tough enough to take an insult without bleeding. She gave a tight smile. "Let me know when you're ready to order." She started to turn away. His hand shot out, wrapped around her wrist. The entire diner went still. She gasped barely audibly. "Hold up," he said. "We ain't done talking." His grip was firm, fingers digging into the thin skin of her arm. Old joints protested under the pressure. "Sir, please," she said quietly. "You're hurting me." That should have been enough for any decent man. He smirked. "Am I?" One of his buddies laughed. Another pulled out his phone like this was a show. Jason's jaw clenched. Heat rose in his chest, not a burst of anger but a slow, heavy burn. The younger biker at the back shifted uncomfortably. "Boss," he muttered, "come on, she's old, let her go." The leader didn't even look at him. "Those ears painted on, kid," he growled. "We're just talking." He turned back to Alina. "You got kids, sweetheart?" She swallowed. "Yes," she lied. Her daughter lived states away and only called on Christmas. But she didn't know what this man wanted that information for. "Bet they don't visit much, do they?" he continued. "Leave you here serving coffee to strangers, no one to look out for you, no one to stand up for you." His words had more aim than his tone suggested. Jason recognized that. This wasn't just mockery. This was probing. testing boundaries, seeing how far he could push before anyone pushed back. Alina's eyes glistened, but she blinked the tears away. "I don't need anyone to stand up for me," she said softly. His grip tightened. "Sure about that?" The room's air thickened. The regulars stared at the counter, ashamed and scared. Because here's the ugly truth. Most people aren't cowards, they're just afraid of being the first one to act. The cook gripped the edge of the hatch, ready to jump through if things got ugly, but hoping desperately it wouldn't come to that. In the corner, Jason slowly placed his coffee cup down. The ceramic clicked gently on the table. He stood. He didn't rush, didn't shout, didn't throw his chair back dramatically. He stood like the air had become too heavy to stay seated under. 2 seats behind the bikers, he walked toward the counter, each step measured, solid, controlled. The younger biker noticed him first, eyes widening a fraction. He nudged the guy next to him. "Hey, isn't that?" "Shut up," the man hissed. Alina felt the blood leaving her fingers where he held her. "Sir, please," she whispered. The leader leaned closer, his breath sour with cigarettes and stale beer. "Say boss," he said, "not sir." Jason's voice came then. Low. Steady. "I think she was fine with sir." The leader's head turned slowly, like a predator, annoyed someone had entered his field. He sized Jason up. Recognition lit in his eyes, just a flicker too late. "You," he started. Jason's gaze dropped to his hand on Alina's wrist. Then back up to his eyes. "Let her go," Jason said. No threat. No flex. Just a simple, immovable sentence. The entire room watched that single point of contact, his hand, her skin, Jason's stare. The leader gave a half-smile. "Look at that," he murmured. "Knight in shining armor. Didn't know Hollywood sent their finest to greasy spoons like this." One of his guys snorted. Jason didn't react to the jab. "Last time," he said quietly, "let her go." Silence pressed against the windows. Alina's eyes flicked between them, panic rising. She could feel it, something building in the air, the way storms did before the first crack of thunder. The leader shrugged lazily. "Or what?" he asked. He squeezed her wrist harder. She winced, a soft sound escaping. That was the last sound Jason needed to hear. He stepped closer. Close enough now that the other bikers shifted in their seats. Jason's hand moved, not fast, not frantic. Deliberate. He reached out, wrapped his fingers around the biker's thumb and the side of his hand, and twisted with expert precision. There was a sharp pop. The leader hissed, letting go of Alina instantly, his body folding, hand reflexively curling to his chest as pain shot up his arm. Jason guided the motion, not enough to shatter anything, but enough to send a message straight through bone and ego. The biker stumbled back, chair scraping loudly on the floor. One of his men jumped to his feet. "Hey!" 2 others rose as well. Chair skidded. Coffee sloshed. The old man in the corner whispered, "Oh boy." Alina stumbled back, clutching her wrist, eyes wide. Jason stayed where he was, center of the storm, shoulders loose, eyes calm. The leader straightened with a pained groan, cradling his hand. "You broke my damn thumb," he snarled. Jason shook his head. "If I broke it," he said quietly, "you'd be screaming louder." One of the bikers took a step closer to Jason, shoulders rolled forward, fists clenched. "I think you owe our boss an apology," he growled. Jason's gaze flicked to him for half a second, then back to the leader. "I'm not talking to you," he replied. "I'm talking to the man who thought grabbing an old woman made him strong." Heat flooded the biker's face. He lunged. A hand caught his shoulder. The younger biker. His voice shook, but there was steel in it. "Stop, just stop," he said. "This isn't right, man." Everyone stared at him. The leader glared murder. "You picking his side?" he snapped. The kid swallowed. "I'm picking not being the guy who beats up a waitress in front of a whole room." You could feel it then, that tiny shift. Not the sound of chairs or boots, but the sound of doubt sliding into their group like a wedge. Jason watched, silent. He knew better than to intervene now. This part had to come from inside their ranks. The leader straightened fully, rolling his injured wrist, trying to reclaim some of the authority Jason had knocked loose. He stepped toward Jason again. "You think this is over," he hissed. "You think walking in here, twisting my hand, makes you some kind of hero?" Jason shook his head once. "No," he said, "standing between you and her, that's just being decent. A hero would have done it sooner." That line landed hard. With everyone. The regulars, the cook, even the kid in the cut-off leather jacket who couldn't meet Alina's eyes. Rage flared in the leader's face, blotching his cheeks red. "You have no idea who you're dealing with," he spat. Jason's eyes cooled. "I've spent my life dealing with men like you," he said. "You don't scare me." The leader stepped back a half step, then another. But retreat wasn't in his vocabulary. Retaliation was. He lifted his voice, making sure everyone in the diner heard the next words. "You like this place?" he snarled, looking around. "You like this sweet little diner and your sweet little waitress?" He glanced at Jason, a wicked grin forming. "Then watch what happens when you leave." Jason's stare hardened. "What did you say?" The leader nodded toward the door. "You heard me. You don't own her or this place. You walk out, we stay, we eat, we drink, we do what we want." Alina's breathing quickened. "We don't want any trouble," she whispered. The leader ignored her. "We'll leave her a tip," he said cruelly. "Might not be money, but she'll remember it." The other bikers laughed uneasily. Jason took one step forward, then stopped. Because this had just changed. This wasn't about a grabbed wrist anymore. This was a threat. Not just to Alina's dignity. To her safety. To the diner. To everyone inside who'd have to stay when he left. He realized something then. He couldn't just humiliate this man and let him walk away angry. That anger would come back. To her. He had to end it here. Properly. Jason's voice came out quieter than before, but it carried further. "You're not staying," he said. "You're going to get up, you're going to walk out that door, and you're going to leave this place alone." The leader laughed sharply. "Or what?" Jason's eyes met his. "Or I won't just touch your hand this time." The room froze. The bikers began to circle subtly, creating a loose half-ring around Jason. The cook ducked back into the kitchen, hand reaching under the counter for the phone, his fingers shaking over the emergency number. Alina stood behind Jason now, clutching her wrist, heart pounding. She'd seen fights before. Drunken brawls. Young men acting tough. But never like this. Never with a man at the center who looked totally calm, and 20 years older than the trouble he was about to walk into. The leader nodded slowly, rolling his shoulders. "So that's how it is," he muttered. "Boys, looks like movie man here wants to give us a free show." Two bikers shifted their weight, ready to lunge. The younger one stayed back, wide-eyed, torn between loyalty and conscience. Jason adjusted his stance just a fraction. Everything in him was telling him this was going to get ugly before it got better. And just as the first biker stepped forward, jaw clenched, fist rising, the bell over the door jingled again. Every head snapped toward it. Someone new stepped in from the fading daylight, a familiar figure Jason hadn't expected to see for another hour. A small voice broke through the tension. "Dad." Jason's daughter stood in the doorway, backpack still slung over one shoulder, confusion and fear mixing in her eyes as she looked from the bikers to her father, to Alina trembling behind him. And in that split second, with every danger pointing inward and the most important person in his life standing in the threshold, Jason realized this wasn't just about protecting an elderly waitress anymore. It was about making sure his daughter never had to see what men like this did when decent people stayed sitting. And the next move he made would change everything. The bell above the diner door jingled, a soft, innocent sound. It cut through the tension harder than any shout could. Jason's daughter, Leela, stood there in the doorway, cheeks pink from the wind, hair tousled from the walk from school. Her backpack hung off one shoulder, a pencil sticking out from the zipper like it was trying to escape. She blinked at the scene in front of her, The bikers. The ring they'd formed. Her father's stance. Alina trembling behind him, holding her wrist. And her voice, small, thin, confused, drifted across the diner. "Dad, what's happening?" Every biker froze. Because nothing wrecks a tough man's posture faster than being seen by a child. Jason didn't turn around. His eyes stayed locked on the leader, but something inside him shifted. A line that was already drawn in the sand suddenly deepened. "Leela," he said gently, "go stand with Mr. Ray in the booth." The old trucker who always requested the corner seat lifted a hand shakily. "Come on over, sweetheart," he said. "You're safe here." Leela didn't move at first. She didn't want to leave him. Then she caught sight of Alina's bruised wrist. Her eyes widened. "Dad, did they hurt her?" That question, that one question, made every biker's stomach tighten. Jason's voice didn't rise. It stayed steady, controlled, but with an edge that could slice stone. "Go on, Leela," he repeated, "now." She obeyed, slipping past the outer edge of the circle of bikers. None of them reached out to stop her, not after seeing the warning in Jason's eyes when she walked too close. The leader's smirk returned, thin and cruel. "Oh, this just keeps getting better," he said. "Didn't know we had a family man in here." Jason spoke softly. "My daughter doesn't need to hear anything from you." The leader lifted his chin. "Why, you scared she might find out what Daddy does, how he starts fights in diners?" Jason exhaled slow. "You grabbed an elderly woman," he said. "You threatened her. You threatened this place. You threatened everyone in it." He took one more step forward, close enough now that their boots nearly touched. "I didn't start this." The leader shrugged. "You're the one about to finish it." He raised his hand, the one Jason hadn't twisted, and snapped his fingers. Two bikers stepped in. The one on Jason's right lunged first, a full-body rush, like he was trying to bowl him over with sheer mass. Jason pivoted. Quick, efficient. His arm hooked around the biker's momentum, his hip turned, and he sent the man crashing onto a nearby table. Dishes shattered, coffee splashed, and the biker rolled off clutching his ribs. The second biker swung wildly. Jason ducked the punch and countered with a sharp elbow to the man's sternum. Air exploded from the biker's lungs as he collapsed to a knee, coughing. The diners gasped, scrambled, hid behind booths. Leela cupped her mouth, eyes huge. "Dad." Jason flicked a glance back at her, barely a heartbeat, then focused forward again. Another biker charged. Jason met him halfway, grabbed his jacket, and slammed him onto the counter hard enough to rattle every spoon in the sugar caddy. Alina backed away, holding her wrist, eyes wide with disbelief. 3 bikers down. 4 still standing, including the leader. The younger biker hadn't moved. Not forward. Not backward. He just stood there, hands clenched, guilt and uncertainty battling inside him. "Boss," he said shakily, "please stop this. She's hurt, just walk away." "Shut your mouth," the leader snapped without looking at him. He turned to Jason, fury building. "You think you're something special, huh?" he growled. "Some big hero. You think beating up my boys makes you a man." Jason's stare didn't waver. "No," he said quietly. "What I think makes you a man is how you treat people who can't fight back." The leader snarled. "What, like her?" He gestured at Alina. Jason stepped forward, the last inch of distance closing like a final declaration. "Exactly," he said. The leader lunged. He wasn't as fast as his size suggested, brute strength without technique, rage without discipline. His fist came in a wide, arcing punch meant to knock Jason flat. Jason ducked under it, stepped inside the leader's reach, and drove a clean shot right into the man's ribs. The biker grunted, doubling slightly, and Jason followed with a knee to the gut. The leader stumbled back, breath whooshing out. Jason didn't let him recover. He grabbed the man by his vest, twisted, and sent him crashing onto the floor, the impact shaking dust from the ceiling vents. The diner fell silent. Only the hum of the lights and the ragged breaths of the downed bikers filled the air. Jason stood over the leader. Calm, steady, not gloating, not angry, just done. The leader attempted to rise, groaning as he held his ribs. Jason crouched slightly, close enough that only the leader could hear him. "This is where it ends," he said. "You stand up, you walk out that door, you tell your men this place is off limits. You ever come near her again, ever threaten her, ever threaten this diner." His voice dropped lower. "And you'll remember this day as the easy one." The leader swallowed. Fear, real fear, flickered across his face. Then Jason leaned back and said louder, for the whole diner, "Get out." The leader pushed to his feet, stumbling. He glared at his men. "We're leaving," he spat. One biker protested, "But..." "I said we're leaving." They scrambled, bruised and humiliated, toward the door. Only the youngest stayed behind for a moment. He looked at Alina, truly looked at her, and his voice cracked as he spoke. "I'm sorry, ma'am." Alina blinked. He turned to Jason. "And thank you for stopping him." Jason nodded once. The kid hurried out. The bell jingled. The door closed. Silence swallowed the room. Alina's chest finally rose in a full breath, the first since the nightmare began. Her eyes filled, then overflowed. "Oh, Jason," she whispered, "thank you. I didn't know what they would, I didn't know." He stepped toward her gently. "You don't have to say anything," he murmured. "It's all right now." She shook her head. "No, it's not really." He frowned. "Why not?" Alina hesitated. Then she glanced at the other diners, at Leela watching her father with awe and worry, at Mr. Ray with trembling hands, at the owner peeking out from the back. And she confessed something she never told anyone. "I didn't tell the boss they've come here before," she said quietly. "A few months back, different group, same patch. They didn't hurt anyone, but they cornered me out back, said they liked my smile, said old women should feel grateful for attention." Jason's blood turned cold. "Alina," he said softly, "why didn't you say anything?" She shrugged weakly. "Didn't want to be a burden." Jason shook his head, the grief and anger mixing. "You're not a burden," he said firmly. "You've kept this place going longer than any of us. You deserve more respect than any man in that club ever earned." A tear slid down her cheek. Then Leela stepped forward slowly, like she wasn't sure she was allowed. "Miss Alina," she whispered. "Yes, sweetheart." "You okay?" Alina managed a fragile smile. "I am now." Jason walked to his daughter and knelt. "You all right?" he asked. She nodded, then threw her arms around his neck. He hugged her tight. But when he pulled back, her brows were furrowed. "Dad, why do grown men act like that?" she asked. "Why do people think they can hurt others?" Jason brushed her hair gently behind her ear. "Because some men mistake fear for power," he said. "But you don't beat fear by being loud. You beat it by being the person who steps up when no one else will." Leela nodded slowly. "But were you scared?" Jason hesitated only for a fraction of a breath. And then, "Yes," he admitted quietly. "I was scared when you walked in, scared you'd see something no child should." She leaned her forehead against his. "But you protected everyone." He smiled softly. "I protected who needed me." The owner finally stepped out from the back. "Jason," he said shakily, I don't know how to thank you." "You don't have to." "No, I do. You saved us." Jason shook his head. "I just didn't let cowards do what cowards do." Alina wiped her eyes. Then something seemed to dawn on her. "Oh, your food," she exclaimed. "It must be cold by now. Let me fix you another plate." Jason placed a hand on hers gently. "Ellie," he said, "sit down for a minute." She blinked. "I haven't sat during a shift since the Clinton administration." Jason smiled. "Well, you're due." He helped her into a booth. The diners slowly returned to their seats, not because the fear had vanished, but because the room had shifted from terror to something else. Respect. Relief. Oh. Jason stood in the center of it all, rolling his shoulders once like he was loosening tension from another life. The storm had passed, but the echo remained. Leela tugged his sleeve. "Dad." "Yeah, sweetheart." Are you gonna stay here forever, like be the diner's superhero? Jason chuckled softly. No, but I'll come when they need me. Leela nodded, satisfied. And Alina, hands still trembling, whispered to herself. Thank God you were here. Jason heard her, and he answered in a low voice only she could hear. I'm always where I'm needed. He walked back to his booth, sat down, and the world outside the diner felt a little less dangerous that day. Because sometimes heroes aren't in capes. Sometimes they're just men who refuse to let the world stay cruel. And sometimes the people who seem the quietest stand the tallest when others need them most.